Back to the starting lineup with Scott Purrier, Ned Reynolds, and Art Haynes on your home for the St. Louis Blues. 102.1 The One.
And the starting lineup is brought to you by Play It Again Sports, by Swing Right Golf, by Marshfield Chevrolet, and by Citizens Bank of Rogersville. Ned Reynolds along with
Scott Purrier
and Art Haynes.
And it's time to talk Mizzou athletics with our favorite correspondent on Tiger Sports. He is from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. We welcome in Eli Hoff. Good morning, Eli.
Good morning. How are you all doing today?
Doing great, thanks. I know you spent some time with family. Is Minnesota home for you?
It is, yes. I'm from Minnesota originally. I moved down to Missouri to attend Mizzou for the journalism school, and I've stayed put ever since.
Where in Minnesota?
Just a little outside Minneapolis, a suburb called Osseo that's about 20 minutes northwest of Minneapolis.
So do you have an allegiance to, the Twins and the Vikings and the Timberwolves?
Twins,
all that
Vikings, Timberwolves start this weekend against the Nuggets, so I'm repping them, but I'm unfortunately a Twins fan as well, and unfortunately a Vikings fan, so it hasn't been a lot of fun.
Well, lots of Mizzou stuff to catch up on, and I think, NFL draft next week, maybe one Tiger hears his name on the first night, you think?
Yeah, that's how it's looking right now. If you read the mock drafts and the analysts and all that, it seems like Zion Young is trending as maybe a back end of the first round, right, somewhere in the 20s or in that early 30 range. When you look at his production and the showing he had, the Senior Bowl especially, and some of the reps there, it seems like that really, really impressed NFL teams. So, would not shock me if Zion Young makes another first-round pick for Missouri, which I think would be 3 in a row for the Tigers.
Okay, the first rounds, but down the line a little bit, Eli, give us a ballpark figure about how many other Tigers you think will probably go.
Yeah, so I think second day, so those kind of intermediate rounds, I think you probably see Josiah Trotter, the middle linebacker, and Chris McClellan, the defensive tackle, selected. They're both Trotter's got fantastic upside. I think he's going to be a pro for a long, long time in the NFL, and Chris McClellan has a lot of athleticism, so I think teams will like him as a defensive tackle option. On the back end and kind of those later rounds, you might see Kevin Coleman, the slot receiver, go. You might see Keegan Trost, the right tackle, go. It's a little bit harder to get a feel for some of those positions, and they might end up being guys who sign undrafted free agent deals. So I think you'll still see a pretty good amount, but the only guys who at this point I feel like are almost locks to be drafted are Zion Young quite early, and then Chris McClellan and Josiah Trotter in that middle round range.
Art?
Eli, has Mizzou concluded spring football, and whether they have or not, what have been kind of some of the things you've seen there?
Yeah, so they did wrap this up. Coach Drink likes to get spring football done early, so he gets it done before most programs have even started it. They actually wrapped this up on the Wednesday before the NCAA basketball tournament. That's how early he likes to get this done. It's early. The big takeaway there, Austin Simmons is the starting quarterback. Coach Drink named him the starter right at the end of spring ball, that's a departure from how he usually does this. Last year, for example, it was Bo Perbula and Sam Horn competing into the season opener. In 2023, it was Brady Cook and Sam Horn going into the season opener. But Drink thought that this team would be better served by having the starter in place for these summer, they call them OTAs like in the NFL, organized team activities and workouts. He thought it'd be better to have the starting quarterback named for all of that. That seems like that was part of the thinking. I think Austin Simmons, he looked good in spring practices, so I think there was some confidence with picking him right off the bat.
What is his reasoning on going so early? Because I went to the website and there's nothing on spring football on Mizzou's football page on their athletic website. So no spring game, no nothing. He just wants to go practice and be done?
Yeah, that's it. So it's for a few different reasons. So the spring game they scrapped. Last year was the first year without it. And the formal reason or formal explanation was that the stadium's under construction, so they can't really get in there. They certainly can't have fans in there and all of that. And that's understandable. I think that is... There's not some grand conspiracy like that's convenient, right? I don't think he's too broken up about it. Honestly, I don't think fans are all that broken up about it either. Having been to some of these spring games, you get some people who it's a free thing to do on a weekend in Columbia, but you're not getting any grand insight from it. The last spring game they played, they weren't even tackling because you don't want to risk somebody getting hurt. So it's understandable there. He does it early for a couple reasons. One, it just kind of gets it out of the way. Like the focus is on individual development, not scheme stuff. And in the past, there's been a transfer portal window around this time that they've wanted to have the roster set and feel like they have a grasp of before then. So, a few different reasons there. And, of course, he told Paul Feinbaum last week it's because he wants to watch the basketball tournament and the Masters. So maybe it's as simple as he wants time to watch the spring sports like the rest of us.
How about that? Yeah. Coach Drinkwitz is into all the other sports. Hey, that's pretty good. Eli, tell us a little bit about the starting quarterback. What's his background?
Yeah, so Austin Simmons is coming over from Ole Miss, where last year he was projected to be the starting quarterback. I should say entered the season as the starting quarterback for Lane Kiffin's crew. Then suffered an injury pretty early on in the season in that week 2 game. And a guy by the name of Trinidad Chambliss took over at Ole Miss and played pretty darn well. So Austin Simmons, he kind of got Wally Pipp. Like, he just never got the chance to earn his job back after Trinidad Chambliss played like Trinidad Chambliss. So once it started to look like Chambliss would be back for this season at Ole Miss, that's when Austin Simmons hopped in the transfer portal to find somewhere where he could start. That wound up being Missouri. He's from Florida. He's a super, super smart kid. Had his college degree wrapped up by the time he was 20 years old. So he's already got that part done. He's working on a grad degree. He's a lefty. That's the number one thing you're going to notice when you watch him play. He's left-handed, which looks a little weird to me still, even after seeing him in practice a little bit. But big-bodied guy. Seems like he has an arm. Seems like the teammates all really, really like him. And again, it takes a lot for Eli Drinkwitz to name a starting quarterback this early, and Austin Simmons has that. You
may or may not know the answer to this, Eli, but did the NCAA ever offer a decision on Chambliss? Will they allow him back?
It was not the NCAA's decision. A court in Mississippi decided that Chambliss will be back. Right. The NCAA was pretty firmly against it.
But don't they have an appeal process?
Yes, they have an appeal. The appeal, I don't know if the appeal's still going. I know the NCAA had lost in court the first round. I'm not sure if there will be another round, but okay. I know at the moment the legal situation is that Chambliss will be back.
Eli, turning to baseball, we in Springfield were very disappointed that game didn't get played last night. That's always a big game on the schedule at Missouri State, and such a good rivalry in that sport.
Yeah, those Mizzou Missouri State baseball games are a lot of fun, and I think that would have been a fantastic environment just down there, because I've been seeing a lot of great things about Missouri State baseball this year, and Mizzou has been more of the same as far as baseball goes. Some signs of life, some injuries that kind of complicate things, and just not a whole lot of SEC wins to speak of.
Eli, it's portal shopping season for the basketball teams and the coaches. Tell us about Dennis Gates and Kelly Harper and what they've been able to bring in and what they've lost.
Yeah, so for Kelly Harper and the women's team, they lost 5 players to the transfer portal. The only super notable ones are Shannon Dowell, who was second on the team in scoring this past year. I get the sense that she certainly would have been welcome back to the team next year, but maybe not in the same role. She had some turnover and efficiency issues that I think, she would have had to go from being a primary player to a secondary player, and maybe that was a reason. Chloe Sotel was a starter on the team. Didn't have a whole lot in terms of stats, but was kind of a glue piece. She's also in the transfer portal. So a couple of notable departures for Kelly Harper's crew, but now a couple of notable additions. Mackenzie Maturin, who was a top 50 recruit. She transferred in from Michigan, where she played. She was in the rotation for an Elite 8 caliber team as a true freshman, so pretty good sign there. And then Nevaeh Coffey, who played for Incarnate Word, that dynasty program in St. Louis in high school. She was their starting point guard for 3 seasons. So that meant she won 4 titles in 4 years and was a starter for 3 of them. She transferred over after a year at Indiana. So it seems like some good backcourt additions there. As far as men's basketball, notable departures, Ant Robinson and T.O. Barrett, both the point guards from this past season, have left. I don't think either is super surprising. I thought Mizzou would keep one and let one go, but both decided to go. So that's a little more of a position of need. Jacob Cruz, who was that 3-point shooter, he's in the transfer portal, but he needs to get a waiver for another year of eligibility. So it's not a guarantee that he'll wind up playing anywhere. That would be year 7 of college basketball for him. Wow. So he's one of those players. Couple additions already for Dennis Gates. He got Jalen Carey, who's a big man for Tennessee this past year. He's a guy who is one of the best offensive rebounders in the country. Doesn't do a whole lot else, but if you've watched Mizzou play, there's some value in rebounding, so we'll see what that looks like for him. And then Jameer Jones, who's a really athletic wing from Providence, was another 4-star recruit type, was on the Big East all-freshman team this past season. He's transferred in, And then I think I can say this in about 19 minutes here. Bryson Tiller, who is a power forward from Kansas, former 5-star recruit, one of the best players in the transfer portal, had 5 blocks in the border war when they played Mizzou this year. He is choosing between Mizzou and Miami, and I think he's going to be picking the good guys in about 19 minutes here, which would be that would be up there with. I mean, that's like Mark Mitchell caliber for the type of transfer that he would be, assuming this goes how we think it will.
He's an extremely good recruiter, Gates is, obviously, with what he brings in. It's not been translating to what they do at the end of the season. Is there going to be even more pressure on Gates next year before this thing snaps if they don't get to where they need to be? Do you think this is kind of the telling year coming up?
Yeah, I think so in a lot of different ways. Dennis Gates has at least from what I've gathered, pushed for a contract extension after the last 2 seasons, thinking that, hey, making the NCAA tournament is enough to earn that. He has not received those contract extensions. This administration is saying, yes, great, you made the tournament, but you want to see a little more. And that matches with the fan base that I think is happy with 3 tournament appearances in 4 years, is not necessarily happy with the fact that this team hasn't made it to the second weekend. So there's that element of it. There's also just this freshman class coming in, and potentially a really good portal class as well, that you have to maximize a player like Jason Crow Jr., who it seems like will be at Mizzou for 1 year and then off to the NBA. It'd be a shame if he only plays 1 NCAA tournament game. So I think there's a need to maximize that, where I wouldn't call it hot seat pressure by any means, but there is a kind of pressure on Dennis Gates to get more out of this season than he has the past couple.
Eli, back to football very quickly. Taking a look at the schedule, of course, Kansas is still on their home-and-home arrangement, but the game has been changed to a Friday night, apparently. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so this came through the pipeline late last week. It's the Big 12's decision, I'll put it that way. Mizzou had no input here. I'm not even sure how much input KU had on it. The Big 12 puts a game on Friday night, I think, every week of the season. That they put a game, they want some exposure for national TV and all that, and they chose Mizzou, Kansas for that week. So, I mean, this is personal opinion, completely not Mizzou's opinion or anyone else's. I hate it. Like Friday nights are for high school football. There should be no college games on there. But college football has infringed on that, and so Mizzou KU will be on a Friday night. Big 12's decision.
Art?
Yeah, wow. So it was Mark Mitchell a senior? What's his status?
Yeah, so he was a senior. This was his 4th and final season. So he is off to prepping for the NBA draft, and no more eligibility for Mark Mitchell.
Yeah.
Eli, I don't know how much you delve into wrestling with Mizzou up there, but we had a local kid from Nixa, Zan Fugit, who was a multiple-time state champion here and had been at Wisconsin and doing great things up there. I believe All-American, transferred to Mizzou. Is Mizzou's wrestling program kind of reaching that status where borderline national power type deal?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Brian Smith is one of the wrestling coaches, one of the most respected people in his field in the country. And he just tends to, it feels like he always has kind of one guy who's at an All-American level and then a couple waiting in the wings. That program just keeps churning talent. And a lot of that's been developmental, but now I think you're seeing him start to bring in these transfers, like an All-American from Wisconsin who, wrestling in the Big Ten, like that's a high level up there. So he has that kind of pedigree with coaching. So yeah, I think that's where that program is. That's where that program has been for a little while now. If you want to be an All-American, you can come to Mizzou and wrestle that way. And Brian Smith is fully capable of developing wrestlers into that.
Very good. Before we let you go, are you a J.J. McCarthy or Kyler Murray fan this fall for your Vikings? Who's quarterbacking you?
I am a fan of anybody besides J.J. McCarthy. So I guess Kyler Murray, but you could put just about anybody else in there, and I'll be a fan of him.
Does Justin Jefferson vote for Kyler Murray too?
I think Justin Jefferson votes for anybody who can get him the ball after this past season, and I think that's probably Kyler Murray. So I vote for that too. I want to maximize. When you have a wide receiver of that caliber, I'd like to see him win something.
And how long do your T-Wolves last?
I don't think they make it past Denver this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Eli, can I ask you a real quick question before we go? You had the St. Louis Blues. They're not in the Stanley Cup. They do play tonight, their final game of the season. How much of an improvement did you see in that team as the stretch run began?
Yeah, I was really surprised by how the Blues kind of woke up after the Olympic break there. I don't know if it was the time off or what. It seems like the goaltending situation got better. It could also just be some of the young guys coming together. This feels like a big off season, because I feel like I'd expected this to be kind of a total rebuild type off season for the Blues, and I feel like they actually found something. So we'll see. It was I'd written the Blues off in like January, so I was surprised to see any sort of relevance this late in the season.
Beautiful.
Very good, Eli. Thanks for. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Art.
15-7 since March 1st.
Yeah. It's good.
Remarkable.
Good way to finish. Yeah. So, hey, Eli, again, thanks, and we'll touch base with you soon. Okay.
Of course, always a pleasure, guys.
Great. You bet. Thank you.
Eli Hoff, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, visiting with us. Timeout. Back very shortly.
You're listening to The Starting Lineup with Scott Purrier, Ned Reynolds, and Art Haynes on 102.1 The One.